Hi, everyone. I'm Tiffany Eddy.
And I'm Tom Praisall.
And we are so pleased to welcome you to another episode of
Anything But Politics.
And we have an awesome guest today. I am so excited about the conversation that we're about to have.
Yeah, I think, our guest today is someone who's not new to politics. He's certainly been around the block, although he's finishing his second year in elective office. But, prior to that, I think he's worked on campaigns. He served as a campaign manager, served as policy staff down in Washington, D.C. He's worked for a number of nonprofits. He's in the National Guard. But before we get through everything,
oh my goodness,
I think we should introduce just recently reelected, the current Manchester Mayor, Jay Ruais.
Thank you very much. I'm thrilled to be here. I know we've talked about this for a long time since I got, probably a year now we've been talking about this, so I'm thrilled to actually be here with you, and I love the idea, especially 2 weeks post-campaign, of anything but politics.
Yeah,
I'm all about
I can
it.
imagine.
And congratulations
Thank
on
you.
your reelection, though.
Thank you. Yeah, very excited. I think we made some good progress over the first 2 years and really fired up to see what the next two can bring. So very exciting times.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. I know that you're a dad. You're married.
I am.
And so I saw you speak, I think it was at the Boys and Girls Club breakfast about a year ago, and you were talking about the fact that your daughter, I believe, she'd had some maybe challenges early on, and you were able to bring her home for Thanksgiving. Is that correct?
Yeah, close. Yeah, so you hit the nail on the head. So our daughter, my wife and I, our daughter was born on February 1st earlier this year. Her due date, though, was April 19th. So do the math, right? She was significantly early. So she was born 78 days, or she was born 3 months premature. She spent 78 days in the NICU at the Elliott. And I could not sing the praises enough of the NICU team at the Elliott. But yeah, it was a really trying time. I mean, I remember that. So that week I was launching my reelection for mayor, and we hadn't told anybody really that she was pregnant. And so I'm at the hospital every morning with her prior to her giving birth. She went into early labor, and then prior to her giving birth, she was in the hospital for a week, where they tried to, because she was so early, they tried to keep her in the hospital for as long as possible to delay the birth, because every day matters when you're that premature. So I was in the hospital with her and, working, but in the hospital with her. And that was when the OMB put out the memo that we're cutting off all grant funding cutting off all grant funding.
Yeah.
So I'm working with our department heads, trying to figure out what this is going to mean, and is this going to go through? And then that Thursday was when I launched my reelection. So I left the hospital bed, got permission,
Yeah.
left the hospital
important,
room, and then went to the GOAT to launch my reelection, and then went right back to the hospital. And then our daughter was born on that Saturday, and then spent 78 days in the NICU.
Wow.
But we are so blessed, because just about 10 months after her being born, she'll be 10 months on December 1st, but just about 10 months after being born, there's no, knock on wood, but there's no residual impact from it. The Moore Center, which is another amazing, talk about nonprofits, but another amazing nonprofit in the state, they come in every 2 weeks and check on her and making sure that she's continuing to make progress. We read to her every single day. They check their motor functions and dexterity and making sure she's, hitting all those benchmarks that a normal 10-month-old would. And she's almost made up. So when you have a premature child, they have their actual age, which would be 10 months, but their corrected age is whatever the term that they spent being premature. Mm-hmm. So her corrected age is 7 months, and then they try and divine like what her actual maturity level is based on what they see. So is she crawling? Is she looking around? Those kinds of things. So she's almost gotten back to her natural age now. So she's almost corrected in just that 10 months. So we feel very, very blessed. But talk about like the good people around you in your life, and I like to think that as mayor, I have a responsibility to help oversee and take care of the city. Obviously, it kind of comes with it. But when she was born, and it was clear that she was born premature, just the outpouring of support from the city, it meant so much that I take care of the city in a way as mayor, and the city really took care of us. And it sounds cliche, but it meant the absolute world to us. Everybody reaching out and sending flowers. People I didn't even know were sending cards to the office, like, "Hey, Mayor, we've never met, but wishing you all the best at being a new father." And so it's been an incredible time.
I don't think that sounds cliche. I think it sounds beautiful.
Oh, well, I think about it a lot because I mean the best part of my day is when I get to come home and hold her, and the hardest part of my day is when I leave and,
Sure.
and to go to work. 'Cause she's so. It's such a blessing. She's so sweet. She's always laughing. I left my phone over there, but I got these like big, deep belly laugh videos of her. Like, my wife sent me a video on election day of her in her like high chair, and she is just cracking up over something. And it's just, being a dad is the best thing in the world.
Yeah, being a parent's amazing. What's her name?
Brielle.
Brielle.
Yeah, so Brielle Grace, my wife's from Peru, so she has my wife has 5 names.
Yeah.
Because they keep the father's, I'm going to get it wrong, but I think they keep the father's paternal name and then the mother's name as well, and so everything's hyphenated. So my wife is Veronica Milagros Olivos Delgado, and now it's Ruais at the end.
Yeah.
And so our daughter is Brielle Grace Olivos Ruais. And we were thinking of what the nickname, what we were going to call her in the house, or whether we were just going to say Brielle. But so we went back and forth, and it has many iterations to get to this ending point. But her name's Brielle, and then Brie is cheese, right? So cheese in Spanish is queso.
Yeah.
So we call her quesita, because anything with a little ita or ando is like a term of endearment. So we call her quesita. Yeah,
That's
our little
awesome.
quesita. Yeah, yeah.
So what's your favorite part about being a dad? I mean, you're coming up on almost a year.
Where do we start? I think every day there's something new that she's doing, and you can pick it up. And so now she's crawling. That's an obvious thing, right? But there was a period of time where she did her first time rolling over, and you knew that was a building block to her then being able to get up on her haunches and start to look around or start to crawl a little bit. But every day it's something different, and I can pick out now, because she's 10 months, like, oh, that's my wife. I can see that face is
fun.
my wife, and and she's got her own little attitude now, and I think watching her grow. I mean, she's only 10 months, but watching her grow over that time period has been amazing.
So you're at that Swiffer point where they just like crawl all over and get all the little dust bunnies on them and everything.
Right.
We used to joke, like, when my kids were little, we should put little Swiffers on them and like.
And didn't clean up while you're on your way. Right.
It's actually really smart.
Put them to work. Why not?
Right.
I'm curious because you mentioned your wife is from Peru. So how did you guys meet?
Yes, I was working at, you mentioned my background in nonprofit. So I had been working for Congressman Ginta when he was in office, and in 2016, when he lost, I went to go work for a nonprofit in DC that helped people with addiction issues. And she was the finance director for that nonprofit, and I was I held multiple titles there, but I was basically the chief of staff for that nonprofit, and we met through that. And over time, having worked together, and then I ended up going into the military after that, but she stayed with me while I was doing all my Army trainings, which took a year and a half to get done between basic training and officer candidate school, and then infantry basic officer leadership school, and then Ranger training assessment course. And so she stuck by me throughout that whole time period. And it was, I'm very, very fortunate.
Well, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And what led you to enlisting in the military?
Yeah, I mean, we're the same age. So I was a sophomore in high school when 9/11 happened, and I always wanted to join the military. I just had a burning desire to serve. And but when I was growing up, I also had a pretty bad drinking problem, and I had 2 DUIs in my background. And for the grace of God, I was very fortunate. I got sober March 9th of 2010. Got sober. And started putting together a good career, but every time I went to apply to join the military, I would get rejected. And but over a 10-year period, I continued to try and get in. I applied to multiple different National Guards. I applied to big Army as well. I was going to go active duty at one point, and I kept trying, and kept getting rejected. And then it's wild. Talk about unbelievable circumstances, but the chairman of the nonprofit that I was working for was the district attorney in Essex County, Massachusetts. Both of my DUIs happened in Essex County, Massachusetts.
Oh, wow.
So I'm the chief of staff for this nonprofit. The chairman of the board of the nonprofit was technically the guy that prosecuted me as a 23-year-old, just because I would have gone through his office. And so we're having dinner one night, and he told me the story of his son. He and his son had gone to Annapolis to go visit John McCain's grave. And his son was like 39 at the time, police officer. And he said, if I don't join the military, it's going to be something that I'm going to regret for the rest of my life. And so he ultimately joined the military. And I'm sitting here listening to this story, and I'm like, that's me. That's my story. Yeah. If I don't try this one last time to get in, I'm going to regret it for the rest of my life. So I reached out to a recruiter. I knew I wanted to come back to New Hampshire at that time, and I reached out to a recruiter, and I told him my story, and I said, look, I can handle rejection, I can handle no, but I can't handle not trying, and I'm going to take one last stab at this. And he worked with me, and ultimately, obviously, I was able to get in. And then when I became an officer, there's a thing when you become an officer, you get a first salute. So somebody on the enlisted side is the first one to give you a salute as an officer. So the guy that was my recruiter gave me my first salute.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and it come full circle through the whole process. But I always wanted to join. To me, public service, there's no higher calling than that. And I think it gets a bad rap, and it's unfortunate at times. We were talking about this before, but I think when we were coming up in the political world in 07, 08, you could have disagreements and still go out and have a beer with them afterwards, right? Yeah. So we could disagree, but you're not a bad person. Nowadays, it almost feels like sometimes, not all the time, it's not uniform. I'm not a pessimist by any stretch of the imagination, but nowadays it feels like not only do we disagree now, but you're a bad person for holding different beliefs than I do. Yeah. And that is so corrosive, and it stops our ability to get anything done. And it's really unfortunate. It has had dramatic repercussions, I think, for policy making, both at the local level, but all the way up to the national level too. It's frustrating to see.
And that's why we do this podcast, because we want people to be able to get to know each other. And, I think already just hearing the story about your daughter and how she was born, it's like, wow, I didn't know that about Mayor Ruais. Like, that's amazing, and all the different things you went through. I'm just wondering this devotion to public service. So where does that come from? I know you grew up
My mom and dad.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So when I was growing up, I grew up in Salem, and my mom was a nurse. She was a registered nurse for 35, 40 years, but I grew up in Salem, and she worked in Boston. So I remember, every morning she would get up at 04. She'd be up at 4 a.m, and she would, hop in the shower, get ready, and she'd be on the road by 4:45, and she'd be in Boston. She used to joke that if she got on the road by 4:45, it'd be a 40-minute ride into Boston. If she was on the road at 4:50, it'd be a 3-hour travel, trek down there. But she took such deep pride and got such a good feeling from helping others. And I remember watching that. And then when I got older and was playing sports, and I played basketball, and some kid would sprain his knee in a game, my mom was the first one to run down from the stands. I'm a nurse, I'll help, I'm here to help. Yeah. And then my dad, he was in the fishing industry when I was growing up. And so I remember, I spent my whole life on boats growing up. And I went fishing with him when I was 11. And he was basically like a lobbyist for a fishing company. So he would go and work with state reps and state senators, and then federal reps, federal senators, governors. And he's got this great picture with George H.W. Bush from some fundraiser at some point. But we were getting off the boat, and the first mate on the boat yelled at my dad and said, hey, make sure I get enough quota next year for this boat. Make sure I can catch enough fish, because I got to feed my kids. And I was 11. It's funny the things that stick with you when you're young, but I was 11 thinking, what an incredible responsibility my dad has to make an argument, to persuade individuals, to help these people out. And I always thought public service was a way to help people. And then when, after my second DUI, I got sober, and I still had to go to, it was a 2-week DUIL program down in Tewksbury, Mass. So I had to do a 2-week rehab over Thanksgiving. It's quite a time. But when I was getting out, there was a guy that I was talking to, and I said, what are you going back to? Like, how's your life? How are things going? And he was talking about a really difficult circumstances that he was getting back into. He had become estranged from his family and had lost his job, et cetera. And I remember thinking, there's no difference between me and him. We both suffer from the same affliction of alcoholism. But the only difference is that I've had opportunities in my life, and I've had people who have looked out for me and helped me find my way. And it reminded me of the quote that talent is equally distributed, but opportunity is not. So for whatever talents I might have, I've had a lot of opportunities in my life. And I had already worked on a couple campaigns at that point. I had already gotten the job working for now Congressman Ginta down in Washington. So I knew I was going to be fine, but I knew that then that I wanted to spend the rest of my life in some form of public service, helping those people who didn't have the opportunities that I had.
Yeah, and I think, well, and public service called you at a young age too.
Yeah.
I mean, when you talked about when you were 11, but I think your first elective experience was in third grade, right?
Yeah, I figured you were going to bring that up.
Yeah.
So I ran for student council in third grade, and I won student council. But then the opportunity to run for president of the school
big
came
job.
up, and I was like, look, if you're anything worth doing, it's worth overdoing. So if you're going
right.
to run for a school to student council, you might as well run for president. So I ran for president, and they allowed us to put up like 8 posters around the school, and you could put anything you want on it. Vote Jay, do whatever. And for some reason, at 8 years old, I came up with this slogan. It was, "I have big ears to hear your ideas."
Yeah. It's
So
catchy.
all around the school was big ears to hear your ideas. Yeah.
Did you win?
No, I got slaughtered.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was a third grader.
It's
All the
humbling,
cool
right?
kids in the 5th grade were
Yeah, yeah.
going to vote for that. But so I lost that race, and then I lost. I'm a competitive guy.
Yeah.
I lost student council in 6th grade.
Oh, no.
But those are the only 2 races I've ever lost.
That's
so,
good.
But I was in student council from 3rd grade to 8th grade, and I still remember Shannon Griffin. I'll send this to Shannon after this, but she owns the Green Griffin now. She's a flower. She owns a flower shop, but I remember she's the only one that's ever beat me.
It's funny because I ran for class president, and my slogan was "Vote for Thomas. He'll keep his promise."
There it is.
Which
I
is
like it.
terrible for any politician to say.
Yeah.
Make a promise. I clearly didn't
Read
learn
my
from
lips.
George H.W. Bush. Yeah. But no, that's great. And so you talked a little bit about campaigns. So you graduated from Salem. You went to Gettysburg.
Yeah, Gettysburg for undergraduate. I always knew that I wanted to be, talk about like public policy or public service. Like DC is the place to be for that, or at least to cut your teeth.
Yeah.
So I knew I wanted to be down in DC at some point, and so I went to Gettysburg, which backing up, first thing I ever did in politics was working for then Mayor Ginta. So he won in 2005.
Yep.
I went to work for him in 2000. Went to work. I was an intern in his mayoral office in 2006. And then I kind of parlayed that internship to work for John Sununu in 2007 down in the Washington office, which led me to work on his re-elect in 2008, which was my first job.
And that's when we first met.
And that's when we met. Yeah. So 2008 was my first job in politics, working for Senator Sununu and his re-elect, which I then obviously it was unsuccessful. But then in 2010, I went to work for Congressman Ginta, or then Mayor Ginta, running for Congress. And then kind of the rest is history. And I did every job on the way up. So I was an intern in the mayoral office all the way up to his chief of staff when he was a congressman in 2015. So I ran the campaign in 2014. In between that, though, this is a podcast for interesting stories. So in between that, so 2008 we lost. 2008 was what? The height of the recession.
Yeah.
And so I got a college degree, just worked on a campaign. I thought I would have a decent resume, but not when people are with doctorates or applying for the same jobs as you are. So I went to my dad and I said, after being unemployed for a month or two, I said, look, I got to get a job. I can't stay home all day, every day. And get me a set on a boat. I'll go scalloping, I'll go long lining, I'll go fishing for a couple months. My mom quickly put the kibosh on seen The Perfect Storm?
Yeah.
Quickly put the kibosh on the Grand Banks in October. She wasn't going to allow that to happen.
I don't blame her.
Yeah, but I went to work at it's called FJ O'Hara. It's a fish plant in South Boston. So I would get on I would do one of two things. I would take the bus from Salem to Southie every day and then go cut the heads off fish, drive box trucks around.
Oh, wow.
It was just a big freezer, and it had fish product from all over the world that would get shipped there, and then it would get dispersed out from there. So Legal Seafoods or whatever. But I was driving box trucks around for a year in my overalls, and I would take the bus home from Southie back to Salem every night at 10, 11. I worked the second shift, so 10, 11 at night, and I had fish guts all over me, and they would give me a wide berth on that bus on the way home.
So do you still like to eat fish? Or?
Oh, I live for it. Yeah, I love sushi, and I love cod, haddock, pollock. Yeah, all the ground fish. Yeah.
So how did you transition out of the fish world into the next career?
I did it long enough to know that I have a deep and abiding respect for people who are able to do those jobs in the long term. And so 2008, I worked all of 2009 basically there from January to November. And then, as we talked about before, like campaigning gets in your blood.
Yeah.
And Frank announced that he was going to run for Congress. And I reached out and I said, look, I don't know what your budget's like. I don't know when you're hiring for field staff, but I would be honored to join your field staff if I could. So in 2010, that's when I was able to jump on that campaign. And that's what led me to get down to Washington in 2011, working on his DC staff. Yeah.
And I don't know if you felt the same way I did about campaigns, but I tell everybody, if you're interested in politics, you should really work on a campaign, because for me, it really created a good work ethic in the fact that your life is eat, drink, breathe, campaign, candidate, and you really don't have a life outside of that.
Yeah. Somebody described campaigning to me one time as running 1,000 miles an hour into a brick wall.
Yeah.
And election day is that brick wall, and then you kind of wake up after and you're like, oh, what happened? And now you got to piece together the relationships that you forgot about the last 10 months. But I would actually even go a step further, that campaigning, I think the skills that you need to be a good campaigner are the same skills that can be transferable to just about anything else, whether it's, being working as a lobbying firm or a public affairs firm or communications or really sales, anything. Because what do you have to be able to do? Talk to people, knock on doors. So you can't be shy. You got to be extroverted. You have to be able to make an argument, a compelling case. You have to be able to answer difficult questions. Like, those skills are transferable to just about anything you can imagine. So for me, what I've always said is that any kid coming out of college that's interested in getting into any kind of profession, and you're not sure what you want to do yet, how about a campaign?
Yeah.
8 months, and then take it from there.
Yeah, great life experiences.
Yeah, that you never want to do again.
I agree.
I did one. I totally hear you on that. Now, obviously, you're an extrovert, but was there ever, like, when you were early on, any little bit of shyness? Did you ever have to overcome anything and to learn how to speak publicly?
He was running for president when he was in the 3rd grade.
Well, I know, but before that, like, have you always just been like this, so charismatic?
I think it's just something you're born with. I mean, I like people. I find people interesting. I love having conversations. I love learning from people. The old saying that you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. You're supposed to use them in that proportion. So I say this, or I employ this now being a dad, but I read to my daughter as much as I can. I really think that charismatic or whatever you want to call it, I really think that comes from early on when my parents would read to me, and then I just got fascinated. I love reading, I love learning, I love being with people and having different conversations. And I think there's also, I think, to get personal, I guess, but I think there's a level of empathy that you can develop when you go through something like getting sober, and where you want to be that guy that gives a hug. You want to be the person that gives a handshake. How you doing today? How you feeling? You need anything? And I think that's the best part about my job, and the best part and the part that can be difficult sometimes. But you go into Hannaford's Market Basket and somebody comes up to you and says, I could use help with this, and I love being able to help. And it's the best job in the world. It's hard, but it's the best job in the world.
Is there a difference that now that you've been on multiple campaigns and now you're actually the mayor, you're the candidate? So what's the difference making that transition? What have you learned now being kind of top dog, if you will?
Yeah, that's a really great question, because it's something that I wrestled with when I was thinking about running, because I've seen other quote unquote operatives run for office before, and some of the people that have done the campaign stuff like we have in the past, some of them make really good candidates and some of them make lousy candidates because they can't jump over that part where you're not the operative anymore. Like, now you got to be the one making the case for yourself, and you have to provide cogent solutions, and you're always on. I don't think it was really that big a leap for me. I think when I worked with Congressman Ginta, I think we have a lot of similarities, both outgoing, gregarious, did it for the right reasons, passionate about helping people. So when I was making the case for him as a campaign guy. I felt like I was basically making a case for the things that we both mutually agreed with. That was the other thing I should say about anybody that wants to get into campaigns. Like, do it for the right person. Because these as you can attest to, these jobs are long, they are hard. And if you don't believe in the person that you're working for, it makes it excruciating. But I don't think it was really that hard for me, because when I ran, I talked about homelessness, addiction, cleaning up the streets, public safety, like things that I was so ingrained in who I am as a person, that for me to now get up and make that case was, pretty much second nature, because I cared very deeply about those issues.
And I think that's really important, is when you have a personal connection to things and you care deeply, it resonates, and it comes out when you speak. And I think it makes it easier for people to take that information and actually help you get things done. So I think it's super important. But, you talked about your time in the nonprofit world. So what was that transition like from, working, down in Washington, D.C., for Congressman Ginta, moving to the nonprofit world?
Yeah, so it was 2016 was when that last campaign for Frank, and I was the chief of staff at the time. But we had been working with this group. So Frank started the bipartisan task force to combat the heroin epidemic. So we started that with Congresswoman Custer. And to this day, to my knowledge, maybe it's changed, but my understanding is that it's still the biggest caucus on Capitol Hill. And I remember Frank being deeply, deeply proud of that, because talk about an example where two members from the opposite party can work together, because the opioid epidemic really hit New Hampshire, as you all well know, really hit New Hampshire hard. But so while we were working, putting together that caucus, we started working with this nonprofit, the Addiction Policy Forum. And that's ultimately the nonprofit that I went to go work for. And a lot of what I did was basically what I was doing for Congressman Ginta was advocacy work and talking to other members of Congress, or I got to travel around the country a lot and do training and technical assistance for police officers, for corrections officers, for district attorneys, talking about the brain science of addiction. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It was, again, something that I'm very, to this day, very, very passionate about, particularly those that, because now in my role as mayor, homelessness is a big issue, both here in Manchester, Concord, Nashua, around the state. Municipalities, when I talk to other mayors, Manchester is the state's largest city, but we're all dealing with the same issues. It's just matters of scale within cities. Like Keene and Manchester are going through the same things. It's just where orders of magnitude larger. But the transition to the nonprofit world was really easy for me, because I was working on issues that I cared about, and got to do a lot of public speaking and a lot of training and a lot of working with people. The nonprofit specifically helped patients and families who have been impacted by addiction. So I worked with a lot of parents that had lost loved ones, and a lot of people that had lost loved ones. Most of them were parents that had lost kids. And then in some of those instances, they were grandparents, so they were grand families. They were grandparents taking care of their grandkids. And it was just very, very moving, and to be able to help and make a difference and provide meaning. And it was an incredible 5-6 years.
It's important work that you did, and obviously it's been helpful in learning those tools and developing those tools to bring to Manchester. And I think you've done a good job in implementing a lot of strategies that you learned along the way. So were you based in D.C.?
Yes. Yeah. So the office was in D.C., but I did a lot of traveling. We had 50 state chapters, so we would travel a lot to the other state chapters. New Hampshire had a state chapter, so I was coming back home a lot too, and that was phenomenal. It was a really great period where I was doing stuff that I really cared about, and it was terrific.
And so what was the decision that prompted you and I don't know if she was your girlfriend or fiance at the time, Veronica, you guys to move?
I always wanted to come home. I mean, I knew New Hampshire was always going to be home for me, and I always wanted to come back. I bought a house in Manchester in 2018, so I knew that my long-term goal was to come home. And the pandemic started, and I was joining the military, and I was like, this is the perfect time to do a clean break and come home. So I went into the military. So August 6th of 2020, I raised my right hand and got sworn in. September, I went into basic training. So I did that. The basic training in the Army is 11 weeks, came home for Thanksgiving, immediately shipped out to go to officer candidate school, did accelerated OCS down at Fort McClellan, Alabama. So they condensed the traditional 12 weeks into 8 weeks. And then there's 3 different ways you can go through OCS, but I did the accelerated version, 8 weeks down at Fort McClellan, got through that, graduated that, and then I think a couple months after that, I went to Infantry Basic Officer Leadership Course, IBOLC, and then came home. Yeah, when I finished IBOLC, came home.
Wow, that's quite.
And then basically turned around 6 months later and launched a campaign for mayor and did that for a year and then won and then.
And how did you? And how do you make that decision? Like you don't have a child yet, but you're a young family about to start out. And how did you have that conversation with your wife about, I really want to do this? Like, how did you go through the motions to make sure it was the right thing for you guys?
It was the most important campaign I ever ran. I mean, it's just like anything else you do in life. It's an honest conversation. Here are the difficult things that are, because I had worked in campaigns for a decade, and I'd worked on 4 or 5 different campaigns at that point, and so I was honest with her about what that was going to entail, and the long hours, the long days, the weekend, and I think, theoretically she understood, but until it started, you can never fully appreciate what it means to be on a campaign until you are.
Yeah.
But it was just being honest and forthright that I believe very deeply in the issues. I saw some challenges in Manchester on the issues that we talked about: homelessness, addiction, mental health, public safety, and I wanted to make a difference on that. And she supports me, she believes in me, and we were able to work together and had a good result on election night that night, and the rest is history. Yeah.
And was this her first foray into politics?
Yeah. I was talking to you before about, so she's from Peru, and Peru has had some troubling periods politically. And I think I'll get the numbers wrong, but 3 of the last 4 or 4 of the last 5 presidents have either been deposed by the Congress and gone to jail or been arrested. And so they have a really turbulent political world down there. And so that was her view of politics, was that, it's an inherent corruption or really topsy-turvy. And not that she saw the United States like that per se, but she was like, are you sure you want to get into this? Like, is this something that you really want to do? And I told her, I said, yeah, I believe very, very deeply in these issues, and I think we can make a difference. And, similar to being in the Army, being in public service was something I always wanted to do. And I said, like, if we don't take this chance, if we don't, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And if we don't do this, I'm going to regret it, because I think we can make some good changes here.
That's great. And I do want to talk a little bit about you're in the National Guard, right?
Yeah.
You're an officer. So that's, 1 week a month, 2 weeks a year. So I think a story that I think is interesting is the Manchester Chief Aldenberg. I believe it's interesting, the dynamic, because, obviously you're his boss as the mayor, or you were his boss as the mayor. But when you went to go serve or, do your training, he was the boss.
I went way out of my way to avoid him when we were in uniform. So I was technically in Chief Aldenberg. So for a year, when we were working together, I as mayor and he's police chief. And then on my drill weekends, I would see him every once in a while, because technically I was in his chain of command. But I reported to the guy who reported to the guy who reported to him. So I was way down. He was a colonel at the time, now general. But when I would see him in the hallways, I would try to make a beeline elsewhere. I kid. We were very professional about it. And I would always joke that we just trade up our sirs depending on the zip code. So when we're here in Manchester, it's, hey, sir. And when it's Concord, it's, hey, sir. Yeah. But he is one of the greatest guys that I've ever had the privilege to work with. So humble, unassuming, except when he's in his uniform and he's got his general bars on now. But you wouldn't know what to talk to him. He's just a really good guy. Yeah. I said it when I was honored. I was able to speak when he was sworn in. And every once in a while, people that he knows, he'll reach out with just a text like, hey, how you doing? Or, what's going on? Anything I can do for you? Anything I can help with? And in the Army, every year we do OERs. It's basically your officer report card. And you get little bullets like, hey, LT Ruais did good when he did this. Just stuff like that. But he doesn't do that because it's an OER bullet. He doesn't do it because, he wants some commendation because he made a phone call one time. He does it because he cares. And he's just a very, very good leader, very good man.
He is an incredible man. He's an incredible man, and doing good things now with Easter Seals, I believe.
100%, yeah. And actually, talk about life coming or life being an interesting set of circumstances and coincidences. His daughter was a NICU nurse at
No way.
at Elliott when my daughter was going through. So I saw her one night. She was interning, I think, at Elliott, and I saw her, and I'm like, oh man, she looks really familiar. And then I put two and two together and realized it was Chief Aldenberg's daughter. But talk about a family of service, right? He's in a general, and she's getting into nursing. But incredible person.
That's awesome. An incredible family, apparently.
Yeah.
So you had been mentioning before we started taping, but you had, I wouldn't say a mishap, but perhaps a moment of levity when you first got elected at mayor the first time. You were doing an interview and realized the power of words.
Yes. I knew you were going to bring this up.
How could you not? That's too good not to bring
It's
up.
really good. I still like it.
The international audience will love it.
Yeah. You guys have an international audience?
Oh, yeah. We're big
huge.
in Ireland.
Yeah, huge.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's exciting. You see how I'm trying to like politically get
Move
off
your
the
way.
course?
Yeah.
No, so I forget. I mean, I like to think I'm just a regular guy, so I forget sometimes that being mayor, some of these things get posted, or some of the things I say can get reported on, and you got to be careful at times. But so I had just gotten sworn in, and I was giving my State of the City address, and then at the end of the State of the City, excuse me, you sit down, and the moderator asks you questions. And so remember, like in municipal politics, the turnout is usually pretty low. And in our race, it was 27 and 20 in 2023. It was like 27%, 18,510 voters. So like 27% of registered voters came out. And I had never run for anything before. I wasn't on any boards or commissions. I wasn't an alderman or a school board member. So I'm coming in, and theoretically, 73% of the city has no idea who I am. And so I do my State of the City, finish up, round of applause. I sit down, and Scott Spradling was asking me a couple questions, and it was kind of like get to know you because no one knew me.
Yeah.
And I talked about when I was in high school, I was in a chorus, and it wasn't a male only chorus. It was men and women. But a buddy of mine was making a joke because there was 5 guys in the back that were singing, and he said we should call ourselves the Testosterone. So I told that story, and the whole place laughed, and I forgot about it, didn't think anything of it. And then I opened the Union Leader on Saturday. Mayor Ruais, formerly member of the Testosterone, was like the lead in the newspaper and the Paul Feely's column. But I was like, oh my gosh, that's embarrassing.
I mean, it's a clever name.
It's funny now. Yeah, I thought it was cute at the time, but
So how many people asked you to sing for him now? Knowing
not
that?
twice.
Yeah.
We did a groundbreaking this morning at Parkside Middle School for all these new additions, and the chorus got up there, 7th grade chorus, 8th grade chorus for the middle school, and they were unbelievable. And I joked when I got up that I can't carry a tune in a bucket, and here these guys are singing the national anthem beautifully. But no, singing in the shower is about as far as I'll go at this point.
We had a conversation with Stephanie Shaheen, and the trick is to turn the volume all the way up. It's really
drown you out.
It's really easy to harmonize. When
She's smart.
Yeah.
But no, it's the last few years have been an amazing experience. It's been a whirlwind. Between Army training from 20 to 22, and then running for mayor, getting elected, and then getting to the interesting story. So I graduate IBOLC, Infantry Basic Officer Leadership course. I graduate IBOLC, and I have a week to report to Ranger Training Assessment course to get ready to go to Ranger School. So I had proposed to my then girlfriend, not then fiance, but proposed to her in April on a weekend during my training, and we wanted to get married. So we flew out to San Diego.
How'd you propose?
So we still argue about this because so it was Siesta Keys. My folks live in Bradenton now. They sold their house in Salem. They live in Bradenton, and so I drove down from Fort Benning in Georgia, drove down to Bradenton, and Siesta Keys in Sarasota is like 20 minutes away. So I put together this great thing where I hired a photographer, and she was just going to come up to us on the beach when we're walking along. And I think I think I'm a lot slicker than I really am.
We all do.
Yeah, right. But so we're walking. I hired this photographer to walk along the beach and stop us on the beach and say, "Hey, I just bought this new camera. Can I take a couple pictures of you guys?"
Yeah.
So we're doing that, and we're walking along the beach, and I'm dressed, and I got like nice jeans and a nice collared shirt, and so she smells a rat. But we're driving to the beach. And I'm texting along the way with the photographer because it's just starting to rain a little. It's just starting to drizzle. And she's like, hey, I got to pull the plug on this. And I said, the hell you are. Because I got like 12 hours before I got to get back to base. Yeah. So we're doing this by hook or by crook. So I'm texting, and my then fiance is yelling at me, get off your damn phone. We don't have a lot of time together before you got to go back. Yeah. Get off your phone. We're going to go spend this time together. So I hung up, and we get to the beach, and the clouds cleared, and it was great. So walking along the beach, woman stops us. Can I take your photographs? And she looks at me like, really? Like, so she knew. But so as the woman starts taking pictures, I drop down to one knee, and greatest flub of all time. I memorized like this 2-minute speech, and I'm on one knee. I deliver it beautifully. I didn't miss a mark. Yeah. And I take out the ring, and I forgot to ask. So, so I land the plane. I did it the 2 minutes. I hit it, and she goes, "You didn't ask me."
That's great.
So I asked her, of course, and she said yes. But she called me on my nonsense right away when I didn't ask her the question. I hit the speech perfectly, except that one most important part at the end.
They always try and find a loophole.
Yeah, right. So we flew out to San Diego in between Army trainings. It's like classic Army, getting married in between an Army training. But so we flew out to San Diego, got married in San Diego, then flew back immediately so that I could go to this Ranger Training Assessment course. And yeah, it was quite the turnaround there in 6 days.
Wow, that's incredible.
Wild times.
I love a good engagement story because none of them go as planned.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Best laid plans.
I know when I proposed to my wife, I had planned to do it in a golfing because I figured if she said no, at least I got 9 holes in it. And little did I know I was going to hit up on the group in front of us, and we got into a little tussle, and then I put the ring box in the cup, and she goes up and goes, "Those jerks in front of us left a ring box in the cup."
There
I'm
you
the
go.
jerk.
Yeah.
But they're a lot of fun.
But it all worked out in the end.
At least she didn't say that there's a cup and I'm just going to toss it.
Yeah,
So
at least she made the putt, right?
Yeah.
But so I wanted to ask you about, because now you've got 2 years under your belt. You just were reelected, resoundingly. I think it was pretty bipartisan, the votes for you. I've heard a lot of great things about you from Republicans.
Paying off a lot of people. Say nice things.
Yeah, I'll send the invoice. But I've heard a lot of great things about your ability to work with both sides of the aisle. So what have been some of the unexpected challenges you've seen or you faced as being mayor? I think, you've obviously been there before, having worked for, legislators, but.
Right. So I think it was a great kind of training ground, having worked on the political side, having worked on the policy side. So I had a good feel for what the expectations were going to be coming in, but you're learning every day. I mean, I had never crafted the budget, right? Because I didn't serve on the board. I hadn't been mayor before. So, those are some of those bigger ticket items, the budget things. I mean, that, you should be learning every day in these positions. And the moment that you think you know everything, you should probably leave because now the ego is coming into play and you should skedaddle. But, certainly I think a surprise, not until you actually get into the job can you fully appreciate like the depth and breadth of serving at a level like this. It's literally everything from potholes to trash to more intractable problems like homelessness. I mean, there's no silver bullet for homelessness. It's a little bit of everything. It's law enforcement, it's addiction and mental health, which of course, no silver bullets for either one of those. And then it's housing, the perfect example in the city. So we need more affordable housing so we can tackle homelessness. Well, all right, so there's a project in the city that's 127 units of affordable housing, costs $50 million to build. So yeah, I want to bring in more affordable housing, but I mean that cost is just so immense. Yeah. So I don't know that certainly there are a lot of challenges. I mean, a lot of these problems that we're facing, it's not something necessarily that a municipality can do on its own. And that's why, having those great relationships with a federal delegation and the governor's office and being able to work with all of our community partners, I think that's where that really comes in handy, being able to work with other people, recognizing that everybody's going to have a different opinion, different belief, but how do we get to yes? How do we work together? I guess it wasn't, I intuitively understood that it was going to be everything from potholes to homelessness to public safety to fires to department heads, everything in between. But not until you get in that office and, you get a text message or get a phone call at 3 a.m. that, God forbid there's been a shooting or there's a building burning down on, the west side and it's a 3 alarm and, are you going to come over and say hi to the men and women who are out here doing the jobs? There's the policy side of it, and then I think there's the important leadership side of it as well, where you have to be there for the men and women that are working for the city, and then of course the people. I love doing the town halls to make sure that I'm getting out there, and just like knocking on doors is the best way to learn what people want. Town halls are the best way when you're in office to say, all right, hey, look, I've done X, Y, and Z, but what do you think? What do you want? How can I do this better? Where did I mess up? I think being in the Army has been a really great teacher for every time after you run a mission, you do an AAR, so an after action report. So what was supposed to happen, what did happen, what can we do in the future to make things better? And so I try and do that all the time in the office is
Smart.
Do my own AAR. I had to veto my first budget. Okay, so where did I screw up? What did we need to do better to get a better result than this? And so, it's being humble enough to know when you make mistakes and then smart enough to know who you need to bring in so that you don't make those mistakes again. And I think leadership has to be an iterative process where you're learning every single day and trying to get better. And
Yeah, you've also brought, fresh ideas. I think that was one of the most refreshing things, I saw, because it's always great to see someone that, I kind of grew up with a little bit in this, succeed. And I remember when you were first elected and you said, we have all this abandoned property that the city owns and let's sell it, right? And use it to, build affordable housing. And I think that type of outside the box thinking I thought was really fantastic to watch.
Yeah, and that ended up working out really well. We ended up raising, over $1.3 million for our affordable housing trust fund, and it's been extraordinarily helpful, particularly on the homelessness end, because we've had a battle to keep one of the shelters that we have in the city open, particularly during the winter months. It's New Hampshire, it gets cold in the winter. Right. You're going to need a place to keep people warm in the wintertime. So we were able to use the money that we got from the sale of that property to keep that open. Otherwise, we would have had to raise property taxes to fund a shelter, which, that's a difficult thing to have to do. So it's paid off dividends in the end. But also now we're looking at how do we take that affordable housing trust fund and, put it more towards its intended purpose and trying to bring more affordable housing, leveraging those dollars to bring in more affordable housing, true affordable housing into the city. But yeah, I think, I have a lot of conversations with National League of Cities and working with NACO, the National Association of Counties, and trying to get good ideas from wherever I can. Because like I said before, I think a lot of our cities are dealing with the same kinds of things, and not everything is going to be a cookie cutter. You can take what's going on in New York City and replicate it here, right? Like orders of magnitude larger. But maybe they got a good idea that we can latch on to from Tupelo, Mississippi, or whatever the case may be. But yeah, reaching out, trying to think outside the box. What are ways that we can do things new, and then who in the city can be a really good partner on these things. I think you're always stronger when you're working with partners and not trying to do things on your own. I had a really smart person tell me that came into my office sometime right after I had gotten elected, and he said, executive positions, you are like the archer. So you're the one that's pulling back that bow, and you're pointing it in a direction. So you're setting a vision. And then when you let that arrow go, it gets acted upon by outside forces. And that arrow can go screwy. So
I love that.
Yeah. So for me as mayor, when you let go of that arrow, like you have to have good department heads guiding it. You have to have good community partners that you're working with guiding that arrow. You could be the smartest person in the world and have the best vision in the world, but if you're not implementing your vision, if you don't have good people around you helping that, you're going to fail. nobody does anything alone. You're always going to need help, and having the humility to recognize that and say, look, I don't know exactly what we're trying to do here. Here's my end state. That's what we talk about in the Army. Like, here's my end state. How do I get there? And that's where I think, like, being the bipartisan nature of it is, I don't really care how we get there, as long as we can work together to figure out what that end state is. Sometimes I'm going to be right and sometimes you're going to be right, but we're going to get there together.
Yeah.
Well, some very weighty issues, which has me wondering about the lighter side of Jay Ruais. So
I'm a pretty boring guy. I don't have a lot of time on my hands.
Well, I don't think you're boring at all. I think you're fascinating. But I'm just wondering, like, you have to, like, have some sort of hobby or interest or something to wind down. So is it, like, listening to music? Is it exercising? You can't say playing with your 10-month-old daughter because that doesn't count. So something else.
Probably exercising. That's the in the mornings. I try and go. I get up early. I'm just an early riser, always have been, and so my wife and I will trade days where I'll go to the gym in the morning and she'll wake up with the baby at 5:30 when she gets up to feed her, and then some days she'll go to the gym early in the morning and I'll be the one that takes care of her. But so I love going to the gym. I do it for the Army, obviously, but it's also a really good way to clear my head. It's a time where I can listen to music. No one's texting me. Hopefully, no one's texting me at 4:30 in the morning when I'm at the gym.
What's on the playlist?
It's depends on the day, and it depends on what I'm doing. If I'm running, because I love running, is one of my first loves. I liked I'm a big fan of meritocracy, and I loved running because there was no BS involved in it. If you wanted to run faster, you ran more, and you worked hard, and you got rewarded based on how hard you worked. But when I run, I love listening to country, and it takes my mind away. Lifting weights is more of like an angry mechanism, and my musical choices reflect that.
Such as?
Oh, I don't know.
Metallica?
Metallica. That's the radio station on my Pandora is Metallica, and it plays everything. But I also love classic rock. That's what I grew up on, was 105.7 and oldies 103.3 way back in the day. Yep. But those are my musical choices.
Diverse.
Eclectic. Yeah.
Eclectic.
And I love to read. I don't get a lot of, now my reading is
budget briefings.
Or with my daughter. Hasta la luna y las estrellas. Everything in the house is Spanish. So to the moon and to the stars. So read, what's the other one? Oh gosh. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not going to think about it. But
so do you speak Spanish?
Yeah, I'm not fluent. I'm not. I can have a good conversation with like an 8-year-old, but I know enough to be dangerous, I would say. But all of our books are all in Spanish. Some of them are bilingual, just so she can get a feel for both. But the way that we've always said is, she's going to be surrounded by English, so she's going to learn English. But in the house, it's primarily, my wife is all Spanish with her, but primarily it's Spanish in the house.
Super smart.
Yeah, it really is.
But I love to read, and when I'm reading, it's all biographies. The history doesn't rhyme, but it repeats itself. Or one of those, maybe I got that backwards. But history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. So like all the biographies that I love to read, like you can pick out different little things from like leadership styles. Like I love learning and grabbing things that I think work for me. Teddy Roosevelt's one of my favorite presidents. How many lives would you have to live to be a police commissioner, a state rep, a governor, vice president, secretary of the Navy, Medal of Honor, and Nobel Peace Prize, president, 2 terms, right? Or a term and a half because McKinley got shot. But how many lives would you have? Oh, and he traveled to South America and like charted unknown rivers at the time.
Heck of a resume.
And died at 60. Like, how many lives would you have to live to fit all that in?
Like, seriously, it's impressive.
But so and the interesting story about him, of the thousands that there are, but when he was younger, he lost his wife and his mother on the same day. And he had kept a diary, and on that day, he put an X, and he said, "The light has gone out of my life." And then he went west, and I forgot this part. He became a rancher, but he went west, and his quote when he went out west was, "Black care rarely travels. Black care rarely catches the horse whose pace is fast enough." So he was trying to outrun the pain that he was feeling. And when I first read that quote, I was getting sober at the time, And I thought about it, like, find a passion, find a purpose. What can keep you ahead of the things that are bothering you in your mind? And, they talk about that with PTSD victims or people who are suffering from PTSD, or veterans who are returning from overseas, or AA or NA, a higher power, finding a purpose, something to believe in, something to throw yourself into. And for Teddy, that was going west and then getting into public service. And, I kind of saw a similarity in what I could do with my own life, that, I've made some mistakes when I was younger, and now I got to grow up. And what's my passion? What is my lodestar? What's my North Star? How can I help and give back? And public service was that for me. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
So I love to
it's
read.
incredible.
I don't get as much time to read as I would like, and most of them are children's books, but I love those too.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're fun.
Yeah,
They stay
they
in your
are.
mind too.
Yeah. Click, clack, moo. That's what I was trying to remember. Click, clack, moo. That's the other one. Yeah.
Remember Good Night Moon.
Good. Oh, yeah. Buenas noches, Luna. Yeah.
I like it better how you say it.
There's some really good ones. And then she has this little piano, and the piano has an English setting and a Spanish setting.
Oh, wow.
So they sing like Los Pollitos Dicen, like all the La Naranja Pequeñita, so the itsy bitsy spider. So I know the itsy bitsy spider in Spanish now. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Do you want to sing it for us?
I don't.
Okay.
Unless I had the testosterones with me along
that's
the
right.
side,
Good-
right?
good
Then I would
call.
belt it out.
Good
I'd have to
call.
turn the volume all the way up.
That's right.
It was worth a shot, right?
Yeah.
No, that's great. Well, I just want to say thank you for coming on.
Yeah,
I think
pleasure's
this
mine.
has been a lot of
This has
fun.
been a blast.
I think you've done a great job. I'm excited to see what's next. I mean, I know you're just starting your second term, but there's always something on the horizon. I think you have a good North Star, right? Which is that, you want to be true to yourself first, and you've got a passion for public service and helping others. And I think that's important in any, I hate to use the term politician, but
Yeah.
anyone who's in elected office.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think you can't, especially here in New Hampshire. I mean, first in the nation primary, and
Yeah.
the old joke about, are you going to vote for John McCain? Well, I've only met him once, or I've
Yeah.
only met him 7 times. Like, we demand a
Right.
level of authenticity here, and we would smell a rat a mile away if we knew that person wasn't being
And we have.
authentic. Yeah. More than once.
Yeah.
New Hampshire.
You can only ever be yourself.
No, and I appreciate that about you. I think the citizens of Manchester are really lucky to have you as mayor, and I think, New Hampshire as a whole is lucky to have you, and I can't wait to see where your future and career takes you. And I'm just excited to have had you on too, because I've seen you speak publicly at so many different events, and it always impressed me, the authenticity and how you always spoke from the heart, and didn't bring all these notes and reading off of cards, but you were just speaking from the heart, and I just think that that's incredibly admirable. And
Well, I appreciate that. I think I derive that from the crowds that I'm in front of, because they, because a lot of them, I'm sure that we've seen each other at, are nonprofits,
Yeah.
and they're all doing unbelievable, incredible work. And so people will come up to me, at a breakfast, and they'll say, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming." And I'm like, I got the easy job. You guys are the ones that are doing the hard work on the ground. I'm the one thanking you. Because the city of Manchester, like I talked about with the Arrow, we simply could not do everything on our own. We need good nonprofit Families in Transition, or Waypoint, the Moore Center, Easter Seals. We could not do the job that we have as a city if we didn't have partners like that. So I got the easy job. I just got to stand up there and say nice things. And because I came from the nonprofit world, I feel like those are, it's coming home when I get to be in front of those groups. So if I couldn't say, something nice or well-meaning at an event like that, I have no business being in this business. Right. Yeah, but it's the people along your way. I don't want to make this sound cliche, but it really is the people along the way that you meet that make these things worthwhile and fulfilling. Or like when I'll go into a restaurant and somebody will say, "Hey, you helped me on this," and I appreciate that. That's my high. That's what gives me the juice to keep going.
Yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah. Well, Mayor Ruais, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Mine. Thank you for having me. I'm sorry it took so long. Yeah.
Well,
No,
we're glad we got you now, so it was worth waiting for.
Yeah. Right.
You're just playing hard to get.
Right. You guys are far too kind. Yeah, I've loved watching some of these other episodes that you have. So thanks for shining. We talked about this before, but people who serve in elected office are human beings, and like we're just saying that that we're not that. I think that politicians get a bad rap sometimes, and there is a human side to people who are serving, and I think most people get into the job because they want to do right by other people, and they have a belief and a passion in serving others. So I appreciate you guys kind of shining a light on that other side of somebody that you only get 15 seconds on MUR or 10 words in the Union Leader to make a point, but there are people behind those quotes that you see.
And I'll tell you, everyone we've had on the show, everyone has an origin story, right?
Yeah.
And every single story that we've had on the show has been different.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of fun to hear about and learn what drives people and motivates them.
Right. Well, thank you. Yeah. Well, continue shining a line on it because it's exciting. It's fun.
100%. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And thanks to our audience. We appreciate you tuning into this episode of
Anything But Politics. And we'll
sorry.
see you next time.
We thank you, and we've got a lot more coming.